The laughing first contact. The black ships emerged from the void like ancient demons rising from an abyss. 17 massive warships, each the size of a mountain, materialized in the outer reaches of the Sol system. Their hulls were decorated with the bones of extinct species, their weapon arrays glowing with ominous crimson light. This was the Draxian supremacy, and they had come to claim another prize. Supreme Commander Vorthak stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. He was 12 feet tall, his exoskeleton a dark metallic blue that had been polished to perfection. His species, the Draxians, had ruled the stars for 15,000 years. They had brought 623 species to heal. This would be number 624. Status report, Vorthak commanded, his voice like grinding stone. We have entered human territory, Supreme Commander, his tactical officer replied. Our sensors detect approximately 80 military vessels in this system. Primitive nuclear propulsion, plasma weapons at best. They pose no threat. Vorthak's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Humans were young, barely 400 years in space. They controlled only 62 systems. Their technology was laughably outdated compared to Draxian superiority. This would take less than a rotation. Broadcast the ultimatum of submission on all frequencies, Vorthak ordered. The communication officer activated the transmission. Vorthak's image would now appear on every human screen, every communication device, every display across their entire system. He had delivered this speech 147 times personally. His ancestors had delivered it thousands of times before him. The words were ancient, refined over millennia to inspire maximum terror. Humans of Earth, Vorthak began, his voice amplified to shake the very air. You stand before the Draxian supremacy. For 15,000 years we have swept across the galaxy like an unstoppable storm. We have conquered 623 species. We have destroyed civilizations that dared resist us. We have turned entire worlds to ash and dust. He paused for dramatic effect, just as the ancient protocols demanded. Your technology is primitive. Your military is pathetic. Your entire species could be eradicated in less than 3 rotations. But we are not without mercy. Surrender now. Pledge your loyalty to the supremacy. Accept our rule, and you will be permitted to exist as our servants. You have one standard cycle to comply. Refuse and your world will burn. The transmission ended. Vorthak settled back into his command throne, waiting for the inevitable response. Usually species panicked immediately. Their leaders would scramble to communicate. Their populations would riot in fear, and within hours, they would offer their surrender. But something unexpected happened. The communication officer looked confused. Supreme Commander, we are receiving a response, but it is unusual. Play it, Vorthak commanded. The screen flickered to life, showing a human female in a simple blue uniform. She had dark skin, short hair, and eyes that sparkled with something Vorthak did not recognize. She was trying very hard to keep her face straight, but her lips kept twitching. This is Ambassador Maria Jackson of the United Earth Government, she said, her voice shaking slightly. We have received your message and we just need to confirm something. Is this real? Like actually real? Vorthak leaned forward. You dare question the Draxian supremacy? Your insolence will be noted. Ambassador Jackson made a strange sound like a cough mixed with a wheeze. Her hand went to her mouth. Behind her, other humans were visible, and they too seemed to be struggling with something. I apologize, Supreme Commander, she said, her voice strained. It's just that your presentation is very familiar to us. The skull decorations, the glowing red weapons, the ominous voice, the surrender or die speech. We have thousands of entertainment programs with this exact scenario. Entertainment? Vorthak repeated, not understanding. Yes, stories we create for fun. Fiction. And your approach is identical to what we call the evil empire trope. It's been done so many times that it has become, well, a bit silly. One of the humans behind her laughed. It was a short, sharp sound that he tried to stifle but failed. Then another human laughed. Then another. Ambassador Jackson lost her composure completely. She doubled over, laughing so hard that tears formed in her eyes. I'm sorry, she gasped between laughs. I'm so sorry. But you have to understand how this looks to us. The bone decorations. The dramatic lighting. The we have conquered everyone speech. Did you rehearse this? Is there a script? Vorthak felt something he had never experienced during first contact. Confusion mixed with anger, mixed with something else he could not name. This is not entertainment. We are the Draxian supremacy. We have destroyed entire civilizations. This only made the humans laugh harder. A human male with gray hair and spectacles stepped forward, wiping tears from his eyes. "Mate, I teach history at Oxford. I have seen actual terrifying empires, Rome, the Mongols, the Third Reich. You know what made them scary? They did not announce themselves with decorated skulls and light shows. They just showed up and started taking over. Your whole aesthetic screams trying too hard." Another human, a younger male in a military uniform, chimed in. "The bone ship is a bit much, yeah? I mean, where do you even get alien bones? Do you have a department for that? Bone acquisition and display?" The humans burst into fresh laughter. Vorthak's mandibles ground together in frustration. "You mock us at your peril. We have weapons that can crack your planet like an egg." "Oh, I'm sure you do," Ambassador Jackson said, trying to regain her composure and failing. "Look, Supreme Commander, I apologize for our reaction. I truly do. But you have to understand, humanity has been imagining alien invasions for 500 years. We have written millions of stories about it. We have very specific expectations, and you have hit every single cliché in the book." Cliché. Vorthak's translator struggled with the word. "Overdone, unoriginal, predictable," the historian explained. "Your empire's intimidation tactics are literally identical to villains in children's entertainment programs. My 7-year-old nephew has toys that look like your ships." Vorthak turned to his tactical officer. "Scan their military installations. Show me their defenses. I will prove we are no children's story." The tactical display activated, showing Earth's military capabilities. The numbers appeared on the screen. The humans had 83 military vessels in the system, 17 orbital defense platforms, and scattered ground-based weapons. "You see," Vorthak declared, "your defenses are nothing. We could obliterate them in moments." Ambassador Jackson had finally stopped laughing, though she still smiled. "Supreme Commander, can I ask you something? How many of those 623 species actually fought back?" "Approximately 60, Vorthak replied. "The rest surrendered upon seeing our power. And the longest war you fought? 18 standard years against the Kellinar resistance." Jackson nodded slowly. "And you think this makes you fearsome?" "It proves our superiority," Vorthak declared. "Or it proves you've been picking on species that can't defend themselves," Jackson said, her smile fading slightly. "Supreme Commander, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to give you some advice that I genuinely hope you take seriously. We do not take advice from primitives." "Please listen anyway," Jackson said, her tone becoming gentle, almost sad. "Go home. Tell your empire you made a mistake. Tell them humans are not worth the trouble. Tell them you encountered a species that is better left alone. Please." "Are you threatening the Draxian supremacy?" "No," Jackson said quietly. "I'm trying to protect you." Vorthak felt rage building in his 4 hearts. "Protect us? You have 83 ships. We have 17,000. You control 62 systems. We control thousands. Your weapons are primitive. Your military is a joke. What could you possibly do to threaten us?" Jackson looked directly into the camera, and for the first time Vorthak saw something in her eyes that made him uncomfortable. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was sadness. "Supreme Commander, do you know why our military is so small?" "Because you are weak." "No," Jackson said. "Because we don't need a big military. We haven't fought a major war in 180 years. Not because we can't fight. Because we decided to stop." "Then you have forgotten war," Vorthak declared. "You have grown soft," Jackson shook her head. "We haven't forgotten anything. That's the problem. We remember everything. Every battle. Every weapon. Every tactic. Every horror. We remember it all. And we made a choice to put it away. To be something better than what we were." "What you were?" Vorthak asked despite himself. "Monsters, Supreme Commander. Really, really good at being monsters. And if you attack us, if you give us a reason to remember, you're going to learn something about humanity that we've been trying very hard to forget." "And what is that?" Jackson's expression was grim. "How good we are at war." The transmission ended. Vorthak sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. Finally, his science officer spoke up. "Supreme Commander, I took the liberty of accessing human public databases while we were speaking. I have compiled information about their history. I believe you should see it." "Show me," Vorthak commanded. The display changed, showing historical data from Earth. Numbers appeared that made Vorthak's vision blur. Casualty figures from human conflicts. not conflicts with other species, conflicts with themselves. World War I, 17 million dead. World War II, 70 to 85 million dead. The eugenics wars, 37 million dead. The resource conflicts, 12 million dead. These numbers, Forthak said slowly. This cannot be accurate. This says humans killed over 150 million of their own species across various conflicts. The data is verified from multiple human sources, the science officer confirmed. Supreme Commander, humans spent 8,000 years in a state of near-constant warfare. They fought themselves. They developed increasingly devastating weapons to use on each other. They created nuclear weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, and they pointed these weapons at themselves for over 60 years. Forthak felt cold. Why would any species do this? The records suggest they could not help it. War was their natural state. They only achieved peace when they developed weapons so terrible that continued conflict meant extinction. They scared themselves into cooperation. The tactical officer spoke up. Supreme Commander, I have been analyzing their current military technology. It appears primitive, but the design philosophy is unusual. Their weapons are not optimized for intimidation or honor. They are optimized for efficiency and lethality. Explain. Their ships lack decorative elements entirely. No symbols, no unnecessary structures. Every component serves a functional purpose. Their weapons are designed for rapid firing rates and maximum damage output. Their tactics manuals are publicly available, and they contain strategies we have never encountered. Deception, misdirection, psychological warfare, asymmetric combat. They have documented and studied 8,000 years of warfare against themselves. Forthak stood from his throne. They are bluffing, trying to frighten us with stories. But even as he said it, he felt uncertain. The humans had laughed at him. Laughed. No species had ever done that before, and their laughter had not been the laughter of fools. It had been the laughter of people who found something genuinely amusing. They had looked at the Draxian supremacy and seen a joke. Supreme Commander, his communication officer reported, "We are receiving another transmission from Earth. It is marked urgent. Play it." A different human appeared. This one was elderly, wearing a military uniform covered in medals. His face was weathered with age, but his eyes were sharp and cold. "I am General Chen Wei, Supreme Military Commander of United Earth Forces. I am sending this message because Ambassador Jackson is too polite to say what needs to be said, so I will say it plainly. Leave. Now. While you still can. You dare threaten us?" Forthak roared. "I'm not threatening you," General Chen said calmly. "I'm giving you intelligence that might save your empire. You came here expecting to find prey. You found predators playing at civilization. And if you attack us, if you give us a reason to stop playing, you will not survive the encounter. You have 83 ships," Forthak said. "We have thousands." "Yes," General Chen acknowledged. "And do you know why we only have 83 military ships? Because we only have 83 military shipyards, but we have over 4,000 civilian shipyards that build commercial vessels. Every single one of those yards can be converted to military production in less than a week. Our entire industrial base can pivot to war manufacturing in days. We have production capacity that could bury you in steel and fire." Forthak felt the first real stirring of doubt. "You're lying." "I'm 68 years old," General Chen said. "I have been in the military for 47 years. In that time, I have never fired a weapon in anger. I have never seen combat. I have spent my entire career preparing for a war I hoped would never come. And now you're going to give me that war." The general leaned closer to the camera. "When I was young, I studied military history. I read about the wars humanity fought against itself. The strategies, the weapons, the casualties. And I felt sick. I thought, we can never let this happen again. We must be better. So we built our civilization around peace. We reduced our military to the minimum necessary for defense. We focused on art, science, exploration, cooperation. For 180 years we have been trying to be something other than what we were." He paused. "But we never forgot how. We documented everything. Every tactic, every strategy, every weapon system. We kept it all, studied it all, taught it all to new generations, just in case. And now you've activated the case. You cannot frighten me with words, old human." "I'm not trying to frighten you," General Chen said. And for the first time, his expression showed something other than calm resolve. It showed sadness. "I'm trying to mourn you, Because if you attack us, my government will activate Protocol Cascade, and once that happens, I won't be able to stop what comes next. What is Protocol Cascade? The conversion of our entire civilization to total war. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource, every person focused on one goal: eliminating the threat. It's what we do when we have no choice. It's what we're very, very good at. General Chen stood up from his chair. Go home, Supreme Commander. Tell your empire you found a species that's not worth conquering. Tell them humans are crazy, dangerous, unpredictable. Tell them whatever you want. Just go, please. Because if you stay, if you attack, I will have to remember things I've spent my entire life trying to forget. And I don't want to remember. I really, really don't want to remember. The transmission ended. Vorthak stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by his crew. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had never felt during a conquest. He felt afraid. Supreme Commander, his tactical officer said quietly. What are your orders? Vorthak looked at the blue planet on his display. Earth, home to 8 billion humans. Humans who had spent 8,000 years fighting themselves and had only recently stopped. Humans who kept all their war knowledge just in case. Humans who had laughed at the Draxian supremacy. Open a channel to the throne world, Vorthak said. I need to speak with the High Council immediately. Should we withdraw? His second officer asked. Vorthak watched Earth slowly rotating on his screen. Peaceful, beautiful, hiding something terrible beneath its calm surface. Not yet, he said, but I believe we need to reconsider our approach. What Vorthak did not know was that his communication to the High Council would be intercepted. What he did not know was that the High Council would see his hesitation as weakness. What he did not know was that they would send the Terror Fleet to show humans the true power of the Draxian supremacy. What he did not know was that they were about to make the worst decision in 15,000 years of Imperial history. The price of waking the beast. The Terror Fleet arrived at Nouveau Paris without warning. 300 warships dropped out of hyperspace directly above the human colony world, their weapons already charging. Fleet Marshal Draxon commanded from his flagship, the Annihilator of Hope. He had been given explicit orders from the High Council, make an example that humanity would never forget. Nouveau Paris was home to 2.4 million colonists. It had been settled for only 80 years, a peaceful agricultural world with green fields and clear blue skies. There were no military installations, no weapon platforms, only a small defense station with 6 patrol ships. Draxon did not bother with warnings or ultimatums. Those were for species that deserved mercy. These humans had insulted the supremacy. They had laughed at Supreme Commander Vorthak. They needed to learn respect through pain. Begin orbital bombardment, Draxon commanded. Target population centers first. I want the death toll maximized within the first hour. Plasma beams fell from the sky like crimson rain. The capital city of New Marseille vanished in seconds. Its 200,000 residents vaporized before they could even scream. Agricultural centers burned. Dams burst, flooding valleys. Power plants exploded. Within 20 minutes, Nouveau Paris was dying. The 6 patrol ships attempted to fight back. They lasted 90 seconds before being obliterated by concentrated fire from 50 Terror Fleet vessels. The defense station managed to damage 2 Draxian ships before it was reduced to expanding debris. 2 hours after the attack began, Nouveau Paris was silent. The green fields were burning. The blue skies were choked with ash. 2.4 million humans were dead. Draxon broadcast his message to all human worlds. This is the price of defiance. This is what happens when you mock the Draxian supremacy. Surrender now, or every human world will share this fate. You have 1 rotation to comply. He closed the transmission with satisfaction. This was how you dealt with inferior species. Swift, brutal, unmistakable. On Earth, in the emergency council chamber buried 3 kilometers beneath Geneva, the broadcast played in complete silence. 50 representatives from every human world watched the footage of Nouveau Paris burning. They watched cities vanish. They watched the casualty counter climb. 100,000, 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, 2.4 million confirmed dead. When the transmission ended, nobody spoke for a full minute. Then Ambassador Maria Jackson, who had laughed at the Draxians just days earlier, put her head in her hands and began to cry. She was not alone. Across the chamber, Diplomats and representatives wept openly. Some sat in stunned silence. Others stared at the screens with expressions of hollow shock. General Chen Wei stood at the front of the chamber. His weathered face was carved from stone, showing nothing, but his hands clasped behind his back trembled. They killed civilians, someone said, their voice breaking. 2.4 million civilians. Without warning, without provocation. They targeted population centers first, another representative added, her voice hollow. They wanted maximum casualties. They wanted us to watch them die. Secretary General Okonkwo rose from her seat. She was 93 years old, had led Earth through 2 decades of unprecedented peace and prosperity. Now she looked like she had aged another decade in 2 hours. General Chen, she said quietly, your recommendation? The old soldier was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of history. For 180 years, we have maintained peace. We have built a civilization based on cooperation, exploration, and creation. We have tried to be better than what we were. We have tried to prove that humanity could evolve beyond its violent past. He turned to face the council. The Draxians have made that impossible. They attacked our civilians. They murdered 2.4 million of our people without warning, without mercy, without justification. If we do not respond, they will do it again, and again, until humanity is extinct or enslaved. What are you proposing? Okonkwo asked, though everyone in the room already knew. I propose we activate Protocol Cascade, Totalva, complete mobilization, the conversion of our entire civilization to military production and operations. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted, argued, some in agreement, some in horror. That protocol was created as a last resort. One representative protested, it will transform everything we've built. It will turn us back into what we were, another added. Into killers. They've already made us killers, Ambassador Jackson said, her voice hoarse from crying. They killed our people. 2.4 million of them. They didn't give us a choice. General Chen raised his hand for silence. I need to explain what Protocol Cascade means before we vote. Once activated, it cannot be stopped until the threat is completely neutralized. Every civilian factory becomes a military factory. Every shipyard begins producing warships. Every able-bodied citizen receives combat training. Our entire economy, our entire society focuses on one goal, eliminating the enemy. He paused, letting that sink in. I have spent 47 years preparing for this scenario and hoping it would never come. But I also need you to understand what humanity is capable of when we stop holding back. The Draxians think we're weak because our military is small. They don't understand that our military is small because we don't need a large one. They don't understand what happens when we need one. How fast can we mobilize? Okonkwo asked. Production conversion will be complete in 72 hours. We have the plans ready, the resources stockpiled, the training programs prepared. Within 1 week, we will begin producing 1,500 warships per day. Silence fell over the chamber. Per day? Someone whispered. Per day, General Chen confirmed. We have 4,236 civilian shipyards. Each one can be converted to produce military vessels. Our manufacturing capacity is 40 times larger than what we actually need for civilian purposes. We built it that way deliberately. Just in case. What about trained personnel? Every human receives basic military training in secondary education. It's been that way for 200 years. We call it historical education and physical fitness, but it's military training. Every human knows how to handle weapons, follow orders, read tactical displays. We can have a fully trained military of 5 billion within 3 weeks. The numbers were staggering. Incomprehensible. General, Okonkwo said slowly, with that production capacity and that many trained personnel, what is your assessment of our chances against the Draxian supremacy? General Chen's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Madam Secretary General, if Protocol Cascade is activated, the Draxian supremacy will cease to exist within 6 months. The only question is how many of them we let surrender before we finish the job. The vote was taken 30 minutes later. It was unanimous. Protocol Cascade was activated for the first time in human history. Within hours, the transformation began. Civilian shipyards that had been building cruise ships and cargo haulers switched their production lines. The designs were already loaded into their systems, waiting. Workers who had been assembling passenger cabins began assembling weapon mounts. Engines designed for fuel efficiency were replaced with engines designed for speed and power. Factories that made consumer electronics began producing targeting computers. Plants that manufactured vehicles began producing tanks and troop transports. Research facilities that had been studying peaceful applications of technology dusted off weapon designs that had been archived for nearly 2 centuries. The economic impact was immediate and total. Every resource, every facility, every person focused on war production. It was not sustainable for long, but it did not need to be. It only needed to last until the Draxians were defeated. The first new warships rolled out of production 76 hours after Protocol Cascade was activated. They were not beautiful. They had no decorative elements, no impressive aesthetics. They were designed by humans who had spent 8,000 years perfecting the art of killing other humans. They were efficient, they were deadly, and they were produced at a rate the Draxians could not comprehend. By the end of the first week, humanity had built 10,500 new warships. By the end of the second week, 23,000. By the end of the third week, 31,000. The Draxians received intelligence reports about human production numbers and dismissed them as impossible. No species could build warships that quickly. The reports had to be errors or human propaganda. They were not errors. The first major battle occurred at the Proxima Centauri system. Fleet Marshal Draxon led 400 Terror Fleet vessels against what his intelligence reported as 300 human ships. He was confident. His crews were experienced. His weapons were proven. His tactics were refined over 15,000 years of conquest. The humans did not fight with honor. They did not follow accepted rules of warfare. They did not meet the Terror Fleet in open battle. Instead, half the human fleet jumped to hyperspace the moment the Draxians arrived. Draxon thought they were retreating. He ordered his fleet to pursue the remaining ships. Then the human fleet that had retreated appeared behind him. They had jumped around his formation, using precise calculations that should have been impossible. Now he was surrounded. The humans did not announce their attack. They did not demand surrender. They just opened fire from all directions simultaneously. Plasma cannons, railguns, missile swarms, electromagnetic pulse weapons. The humans used everything at once. Draxon's flagship took 47 direct hits in the first minute. His shields collapsed. His weapon systems failed. His communication array went dark. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Terror Fleet had lost 378 ships. The humans had lost 22. Draxon survived, his escape pod picked up by a human rescue ship. He was brought before a human naval captain named Rodriguez. She was young, maybe 30 years old, with cold eyes and a scar across her left cheek. "Why?" Draxon asked, his pride shattered. "Why did you fight so dishonorably?" "We challenged you to open battle." Rodriguez lit a cigarette and studied him. "You killed 2.4 million civilians without warning. You don't get to lecture us about honor. We are warriors. You are supposed to be civilized." "We are civilized," Rodriguez said quietly. "That's why we tried to warn you. That's why we gave you a chance to leave. But you mistook civilization for weakness. You thought because we chose peace we had forgotten war." She leaned forward. "Let me educate you about humanity. We spent 8,000 years fighting ourselves. We developed tactics for every terrain, every condition, every opponent. We learned deception, ambush, psychological warfare. We learned to win at any cost because the cost of losing was extinction, and we documented everything. You fight like cowards," Draxon spat. "No," Rodriguez said. "We fight like survivors. We fight like a species that has been to the edge of extinction and decided never to go back. You fight for honor and glory. We fight to win. That's the difference." News of the Proxima Centauri defeat spread through the Draxian supremacy like ice water. The Terror Fleet had been destroyed. Fleet Marshal Draxon had been captured. The humans had lost only 22 ships. The High Council convened an emergency session. "This is impossible," High Chancellor Vornak declared. "The humans had fewer ships. They had inferior technology. How did we lose?" Supreme Commander Vorthak, who had warned them to be cautious, spoke carefully. "They fight differently than any species we have encountered. They do not follow our rules. They do not value honor over victory. They use tactics we have never seen." "Then we send more ships," another council member said. "We outnumber them. We have 17,000 vessels in our fleet. They have built 31,000 in 3 weeks," Vorthak said quietly. Silence fell over the council. That is impossible, Vornak repeated. I have verified the intelligence personally. They have converted their entire industrial capacity to war production. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource. They are producing approximately 1,500 warships per day. How? Someone whispered. Because they can, Vorthak said. Because their civilization was built with this capability hidden inside it. Just in case. Because they never forgot how. More battles followed. Every single one ended the same way. Draxian fleets, proud and powerful and ancient, were systematically dismantled by human forces that seemed to be everywhere at once. The humans used tactics the Draxians had never encountered. False retreats that led into ambushes, feigned weaknesses that concealed traps, psychological warfare that broke Draxian morale. At the Battle of Arcturus, the humans broadcast recordings of previous Draxian defeats on all frequencies during the fight. Draxian crews heard their comrades screaming, heard their ships exploding, heard their commanders begging for mercy. By the time the battle ended, half the Draxian fleet had surrendered without firing a shot. At the Battle of Rigel, the humans used electronic warfare to make their 300 ships appear as 3,000 on Draxian sensors. The Draxian commander retreated without engaging, believing he was outnumbered 10-1. At the Battle of Wolf 359, the humans didn't fight at all. They just broadcast casualty statistics from previous battles and waited. After 6 hours, the entire Draxian fleet surrendered. The Draxian military was not just losing, it was breaking. Soldiers refused orders. Crews mutinied. Commanders fled rather than face human forces. An empire that had conquered 623 species over 15,000 years was falling apart in 6 weeks. The humans did not slow down. Their production continued. Their fleets grew larger. Their tactics grew more refined. They pushed deeper into Draxian space, liberating conquered species, destroying military installations, capturing territory at an unprecedented rate. But they did not target civilian populations. Every attack was surgical, precise, aimed at military targets only. When Draxian civilians were caught in combat zones, humans evacuated them first. When Draxian wounded were found, humans treated them in their medical facilities. This confused the Draxians more than the military defeats. Why would an enemy show such mercy? The answer came 6 weeks and 3 days after Nouveau Paris burned. Human fleets surrounded the Draxian homeworld. 5,000 warships formed a perfect sphere around the planet, weapons charged and ready. The High Council waited in their chambers for the final attack, for the bombardment that would destroy their civilization, just as they had destroyed so many others. Instead, they received a transmission. Ambassador Maria Jackson appeared on their screens. Her eyes were still red from crying, but her voice was steady. High Council of the Draxian Supremacy. I'm here to offer terms. Terms? High Chancellor Vornak repeated, confused. You have won. Why would you offer terms? Because destroying you would make us into what you are, Jackson said simply. And we don't want to be that. She transmitted a document. This is the Treaty of Reconciliation. If you accept it, the war ends immediately. No more death, no more destruction. Here are the terms. First, the Draxian supremacy is dissolved. Your empire ends today. Second, all species you conquered are granted immediate independence. Third, you will pay reparations to those species over the next century. Fourth, you will submit to a period of supervised disarmament. And fifth, you will join the Galactic Cooperative Initiative as equal members, not conquerors. Why? Vorthak asked. Why would you do this? We attacked you. We killed millions of your people. Why not destroy us? Jackson's expression was sad. Because we've been where you are. We've been the conquerors. We've been the ones who thought might made right, and we nearly destroyed ourselves because of it. If we destroy you now, we become what we spent 2 centuries trying to evolve beyond. We become monsters again. She leaned forward. We don't want your empire. We don't want your territory. We don't want revenge. We just want peace. Real peace. Not the peace of submission, but the peace of cooperation. Join us, work with us. Be part of something better than what you were. The High Council debated for 3 hours. Some wanted to refuse, to fight to the last. Others saw the futility and continued resistance. In the end, the vote was 11-1 in favor of acceptance. The war ended 6 weeks and 4 days after it began. The Draxian supremacy, which had ruled for 15,000 years, dissolved peacefully. The Treaty of Reconciliation was signed. Conquered species were liberated. Reparations began. And slowly, painfully, the Draxians began the long process of learning to be something other than conquerors. 10 years later, former Supreme Commander Vorthak served as the Draxian ambassador to the Galactic Cooperative. He was attending a first contact situation with a new species that had been discovered. They called themselves the Krathor Dominion, and they had sent an intimidating message demanding submission from all nearby species. Ambassador Jackson was there too, older now with gray in her hair. They watched the Krathor transmission together. The aggressive posturing, the threats, the decorated ships, the surrender demands. Vorthak and Jackson looked at each other. They both started laughing. A young Krathor commander appeared on screen, confused and angry. "You dare laugh at the Krathor Dominion? We have conquered 40 systems." Vorthak composed himself. 40 systems? How impressive for such a young species. "We destroyed our fleet," Jackson added, "in 6 weeks. When we were just starting to get serious." "You?" the Krathor commander said. "But you are different species." "Yes," Vorthak said. "I'm Draxian. My people once ruled an empire of 623 species. Then we made the mistake of attacking humanity. It did not end well for us, and what happened?" Jackson smiled sadly. "We tried to teach them fear. Instead, they taught us wisdom. We tried to make them submit. Instead, they made us partners. We gave them every reason to destroy us. Instead, they gave us a chance to be better." The Krathor commander was silent. "Here is my advice," Vorthak said. "The same advice I should have taken 10 years ago. Join the cooperative. Share your knowledge, your culture, your strengths. Work with us instead of trying to conquer us. Because I promise you, if you choose conquest, you will eventually encounter something you cannot conquer, and you will wish you had made different choices." "Are you threatening us?" the Krathor demanded. "No," Jackson said gently. "We're trying to save you from making our mistake. The galaxy is full of species trying to prove they're the strongest, but strength without wisdom just leads to suffering. Join us, learn with us, grow with us, be part of something that lasts." There was a long silence. Then the Krathor commander asked, "What if we refuse?" Vorthak and Jackson exchanged glances. "Then we'll defeat you in combat," Jackson said matter-of-factly. "Probably in about 2 months based on your current military capabilities. Then we'll offer you the exact same treaty we're offering now, except a lot of your people will have died unnecessarily in between. We are mighty warriors." "So are we," Vorthak said. "And look at us now, partners in a cooperative, building things instead of destroying them, living without fear. It's better than you can imagine." The transmission ended. Jackson turned to Vorthak. "Do you think they'll listen?" "Probably not at first," Vorthak admitted. "But eventually. They all do eventually. Once they realize what they're facing." "What are they facing?" Vorthak smiled. "The possibility of something better. That's always the hardest thing to accept." They walked together through the cooperative station, a structure built by 20 different species working in harmony. Draxian architecture blended with human design, mixed with the artistic styles of dozens of other civilizations. "Do you ever regret it?" Jackson asked. "Losing your empire?" Vorthak thought about it. "Every day I'm grateful we lost. We were powerful, but we were alone. Now we're part of something larger. Something that will outlast any empire. We build instead of destroy. We create instead of conquer. Your species taught us that." "We had good teachers," Jackson said. "We taught ourselves the hard way. 8,000 years of hard lessons. We just didn't want anyone else to learn the same way we did." They reached the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krathor were making their decision. Somewhere out there, other species were learning that the galaxy had changed. That conquest was no longer the path to greatness. That cooperation was stronger than domination. "Do you think it will last?" Vorthak asked. "This peace we've built?" Jackson smiled. "As long as we remember why we built it. As long as we remember what we were and what we chose to become. As long as we remember that being strong enough to destroy your enemies means nothing if you're not wise enough to make them your friends." Wise words from the species that laughed at us, Vorthak said with amusement. "We laugh because we remember," Jackson said. "We remember being exactly where you were. We remember thinking power was everything. We remember almost destroying ourselves. And now we remember that the greatest strength is knowing when not to use your power. I wish we had learned that 15,000 years ago," Vorthak said quietly. "You learned it when you needed to," Jackson replied. "That's what matters. You chose wisdom over pride, peace over power. That's not weakness. That's the hardest choice any civilization can make. They stood together in comfortable silence, two former enemies, now partners, watching the stars and wondering which species would be next to learn the same lesson they had learned. That true power lies not in conquest, but in the choice to show mercy. That lasting peace comes not from domination, but from cooperation. And that sometimes, the greatest victories are the wars you choose not to fight.